Song of Solomon, chapter 2, says, catch us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vine, for our vines have tender grapes. I read it just one more time. I want you to listen to this. Catch us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vines. It says, for our vines have tender grapes. The writer of the Song of Solomon says, catch the little foxes, because the little foxes, it says, they spoil the vine of love. It said, because for our vine have tender grapes. One translation, I think Message translation says, our garden of love is just flowering. It's just flowering. At the beginning of every relationship, when things seem to be budding, there are little foxes that the devil introduces. And these little foxes are actually maybe not so much about the devil, because sometimes we give the devil the power that he doesn't have. Yeah, we over-impute on him even things that he's not responsible for. Now, in our own relationship of over 20 years now, what I've seen...
20 years and 9 months.
That's part of the difference. I generalize, she can be very specific and it can be very annoying. All right. I'm just telling you, we're getting into it gradually, because we're talking about, these traits and these imperfections that we have been dealing with the last 20 years and 9 months. But you see, some of these things are big foxes, while some are little foxes. And when you look at your life generally, I want to start out by just saying that we are not perfect. The imperfection of both of us combined together sometimes can be overwhelming. Now, let me layer something else on it. We also live in an imperfect world with imperfect weather conditions, imperfect neighbors and neighborhoods, and imperfect nations like our own here. Everything combined together will have a resultant effect on the integrity of your relationship and the efficacy of your relationship. Imperfect people, imperfect world, imperfect conditions, we only have a perfect God. Yeah, only a perfect God. So the resultant effect of all this is what we tend to deal with in our relationships. And it's important that we are mindful of it so that we are not too, overwhelmed or judge ourselves too strongly. Colossians 3 and verse 13 has this to say in the New Living Translation. Colossians 3 and verse 13 says, make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. So we're saying, emphasizing the necessity of making allowance for each other's fault. How have you been making this allowance?
Okay, so I'm just going to share one of the allowances that we've had to make through the years. So early in our marriage, I just used to wonder why it seemed like my husband seemed to pick on everything. You see the way I emphasize everything. It's still paining me small, Sha, but I've forgiven him. Yeah? But it just felt like he picked on every little thing at least that was my opinion then, and that was the kind of feedback I gave him. I told him, is there no allowance to just overlook? Okay, we have to discuss this and this and this. And I just like, guy, can we just move on? But what I failed to see in the equation was that in as much as there was room to overlook a few things, the truth is I was on the extreme end of the divide, in that I could just not notice things. It was just so bad that there would be seasons my husband would be like, didn't you see this? Didn't you notice this? Is this okay to you? And in truth, I just had not noticed it. So it was a really big issue for us. Managing that little what seems like a little tension for us was everything. A second issue that we had early in our marriage was security consciousness.
So, okay, go on.
I must say it. Security consciousness. So I grew up in a household, right, where my dad was a soldier. Before we go to bed at night, he shuts all the doors, makes sure everything is locked, check the windows. In the night, when he wakes up, whether to relieve himself or whatever, he will go around again, check, again.
That was what he was trained to do.
That was my conscious idea.
He was a retired colonel.
Let me tell this story
trained
now.
In security.
Wait first. Wait. Checking all the doors. And then I married yours truly, anointed Pastor Godman, who would go to sleep at night, not even remembering that we had a door. So we were managing it small. We won't put off the light, won't shut the door. I just told myself, okay, we can manage it a little bit, we're all right. But the day I thought, hey, today we're going to beat each other if the Holy Spirit does not come and settle this for us now, was the day I came home from work. Imagine, I left home maybe 5:30 in the morning, went to work full day, came back in the night, in this Lagos, you know what I mean, and the doors to my house were wide open. What happened? Should I pick up I knew, of course, it had to be him because I left him at home. But at that point, the fuse in my head, I could hear the timer just counting down. I was just saying to myself, Bola, calm down. Bola, calm down. Bola, calm down, right? So this was a difference between us. And if we had not managed that difference, that, in quotes, imperfection between the two of us, we literally could have, thrown things away.
Thank you for indulging her. Okay, so what she just shared are two things that seem to put my imperfections on the table. I'm not going to repay evil with evil. But I'm going to attempt to give you context. And I don't want you to think that I'm trying to defend myself. Put yourself in, just relax. So this is where I'm going. With the benefit of a bit of context, you will understand. This was maybe close to 20 years ago, what she just shared, so I've changed. But much more than that is that I got into marriage where I was coming from. We're a product of nurture and nature, your formation. She grew up with a trained military man at home. My dad happened to be a retired civil servant who went into politics. And businessman, and I grew up in a polygamous home. I was like number 20-something, At any point in time in our house, we had minimum about 30 people living in the house. You cannot shut the door on anybody. All the years that I grew up... I'm saying this openly, and you can ask any of my siblings. All the years that I grew up in my father's house, I cannot remember the door being locked. For what? Who is coming to attack us? All of us? We are plenty enough to attack a city. You understand what I'm saying? So, getting married, and she started to judge me from a background, comparing me to a soldier dad, was definitely unfair.
And the same way we've gone on this security issue is the same way you can play it in your own relationship. We've touched on maybe only one or two issues, but for you it could be many things. Your thoughts concerning money, the way you manage, conflict. We often say that the conflict itself can be an issue, but it's not the main issue. What is the real issue? Is how are you dealing with it? Is there room for you to grow from that place, or is it really literally the end of the world? The truth is that God can give us grace for managing conflict well. And when you hear people talk about irreconcilable differences, why can't we reconcile our differences? We're meant to be different. In fact, our differences is our beauty. That's the beauty of our relationships, that we're different. But how we manage the conflict and how we come to a place of agreement, now that is the big deal. And that's the bone of contention for our conversation today.
So it's important for us to emphasize that inevitable flaws and disappointment arise in relationships. That is very important. There will be inevitable flaws and disappointments arising from your relationship, and we must pay attention to that. It's also important that we heal from past hurts so that we don't become conduits of pain. All right? We don't become conduits of pain, but of love. Because what happens when we carry a lot of things, like I described where I was coming from and all that, when you carry that into your relationship and you are unmindful of it, what is good to you or what you brought from your background may not fit into this current arrangement. Yeah. And our way of getting better is to be open to the adjustments that we need to make so that we don't become the conduits of offense and conduits of pain, but of love and source of love in our relationship.